Welcome to today's edition of Around the WaterCooler from the CIO WaterCooler. My name's David Savage and I'm hosting the conversation today. The chat is all about what finance and HR stakeholders really want from CIOs. And to help us do that, we've got a panel of three experts. Look, arbitrarily, as everyone is now kind of familiar with in the world that we've kind of had to get used to, Anita, you're on the left of my screen. Do you just want to start by telling everyone who you are and what you do?
Yes, thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Anita Lettink. I'm an advisor and speaker on the future of work with a special interest for young HR technology companies. And my background is I have been in the HR and technology space for the past 20 years.
Amazing. Thank you. David?
Hi, my name's David Myers. I'm the head of finance systems and change at Brewin Dolphin. Essentially, my role is to be the translator between the finance department and the IT department, making sure that the finance team get quicker, slicker, but at the same time, the control framework is maintained.
Thanks. And Nikki?
Hi David, my name's Nikki Paine. I work for Canon UK. I'm the head of B2B marketing over there. So my job is really to ensure that the customers that we work with across the public and private sectors know how we can help them with their document strategy.
And look, if we focus this first question to you then, Nikki, because I know that you've got some research in this area around the expectations of IT in the post-pandemic world, what have your findings been?
Yeah, so we did a bit of insight, a bit of research last year, two pieces actually, to speak to IT specifically and say, okay, what's your perspective on what you think your internal stakeholders' expectations of you are? And then we did a second piece of research with two of those priority stakeholders, which turned out to be HR and finance, as you've mentioned. And we asked them the same question: what is it that you expect of IT? And how do you want them to deliver that? And there were three key themes that came out. The first one's not going to be a surprise. Obviously, the pandemic drove a revolution in hybrid working, and there was a huge amount of recognition and acknowledgement for the role that IT had played in keeping the lights on, really, and getting those organisations that needed people to be able to work from home to be able to do that productively. But there's now, this is the norm now. So the expectations is, how do we optimise these hybrid working environments from a productivity perspective, but also from an employee wellbeing and inclusion perspective? So that was one of the key themes. The second one was really about security, again, hot topic for everybody. And hybrid working has really sort of upped the ante in terms of there's a whole new set of considerations at a greater scale around security and how we protect customer and employee data, how we prevent cyber attacks, and how we ensure in this hybrid working world everything is as secure as possible. And the third area was really around business process automation. So how do we support organisations in the digital world get more and more productive in the right ways, in the right places? So they were the three main themes that came out.
It's interesting there listening to Nikki talk about kind of what are your expectations of IT. David, you're on the other side of that divide. You've said there that you're kind of the translator.
Yeah.
What are your expectations of your IT department?
The key thing is no surprises and timely delivery of data. So no surprises is really making sure that when things change, and they always will do, that we're part of the process, we can contribute to some testing, and that when the main finance team come back in on a Monday morning, there's no surprise and everything's working. And from a data perspective, the key thing is making sure that we get what we need into our stack on a timely, consistent basis. Everything's reconciled. There's no missing files, and that really, data quality is something that everybody's taking seriously and addressing and making sure it's part of their objectives.
And I suppose the other kind of aspect of this is to come to you, Anita. You said that you advise young HR tech companies, so it's kind of that marriage of the two. And when we're thinking about how technology and IT can meet the expectations of HR, I suppose you're seeing it where people are really kind of coming together and having to collaborate on that front, right?
Absolutely. And I think what is happening at this point in the world of HR is that you see an enormous influx of new solutions completely based on the cloud, supported by AI, machine learning, and all the new technologies that have come to market in the past couple of years. And during the pandemic, companies really went out and tried to find what was out there, as Nikki mentioned, especially in the area of collaboration, employee well-being. Suddenly they became huge topics to keep people productive. And the systems that were in place often didn't quite cut it, especially from an employee experience point of view. So there's a lot happening in that space. And then, as David mentioned, you always have to have a firm grasp on security and privacy, because these are employee data. You cannot afford to get in the news because of a breach, right? And with everyone working from home, that is an additional headache for a lot of HR leaders, but also for IT leaders.
So look, I want to kind of pose a quick question then, with regards to kind of specific areas where IT can first help HR and then help finance. So I think it'd be interesting to come to you, Anita, and ask about specific examples around HR, and then get the Canon perspective, and then do the same with you, David, around finance, and get the Canon perspective as well. So Anita, when you look at it, what are the specific areas that IT can help HR with?
Yeah, I think for a very long time, HR and IT had, let's say, a difficult relationship, in the sense that IT often dominated the choices that HR wanted to make. If there was an ERP, IT often suggested, well, why don't you use the HR module of our IT system? And they had the relationships with the vendors. And the cloud has changed all of that, because suddenly HR executives can reach out to these companies by themselves, don't have to worry so much about what is already there, what fits in the infrastructure. And that has changed the relationships into more of a equal partner relationship, where both IT and HR have an equal stance in the decisions. And so I think at the moment, what you see is that while HR looks at functionality and tries to bring in new solutions, they bring IT on because they understand, once again, how important security and privacy are from a corporate reputation perspective. But also the fact that these cloud applications need to talk together, and there are integration requirements. You must involve IT in those types of decisions. And then also they have a lot more experience bringing new solutions into the company, right? So you also want to benefit from that change management rollout experience when you embark on an HR project.
And Nikki, from the experience that you've got of dealing with your clients and the research that you've done, does that tally with what you're seeing?
Yeah, it does. It's really interesting, because we were asking, what do you want from IT? And actually a lot of the response was, we want the technology, we want it to be fit for purpose, we want it to be future proof. But a lot of the conversation was really about how they wanted IT to work with them. And Anita, you were talking about it, it's almost a democratized process now. And one of the themes that came out of the conversations with HR was, they want IT to immerse themselves in their business unit and really understand what it is that they're doing, and be able to proactively provide suggestions on the constantly evolving technology landscape about solutions that are going to help them do that effectively, securely. There are specific business processes like employee onboarding and many others. The systems that HR manage are systems that are used by all employees. So HR have, they're the custodian of the overarching employee experience. And so much of that now is digital and technology based. So HR want to work really, really closely with IT and get that proactive advice, that ongoing support, as you said, Anita, in terms of how do we then implement this effectively, and that reactive support. So there was some really interesting themes that started rising about the way they wanted IT to work with them.
So David, then if we turn our attention to the areas that IT can help finance with, I mean, joking aside, the democratized process doesn't sound like it necessarily fits with finance departments I've had experiences with. Maybe you can tell me otherwise, but what are the specific examples that you can think of?
I think IT can help not only finance, they can help all departments with the provision and democratization of tools such as low code, no code tooling. If you look at what we've done recently with Microsoft Power Apps, that's really been quite transformational in saving a lot of time around onboarding new suppliers. It's really helped to save time, remove emails from an inbox, increase the audit trail. So really just more of that trust to let finance and other functions do what the tools allow them to do.
Nikki, does that tally? I mean, trust, we were talking about style where it comes to HR. Trust would appear to be a particularly kind of apt word, I suppose, where finance and money is concerned. Does that again tally with your experience?
To a degree, I wouldn't say trust was the word that came up, but a desire for a lot more day-to-day collaboration and early involvement from IT to help sort of scope the objectives. And then I suppose, as you say, David, agree those ways of working. Actually, is it the finance department that's going to go and take the lead on the sourcing and design of that solution? But where is the value that IT can add there in terms of, ensuring compliance with the overarching security policies, etc. And I think some of the themes that came through were finance seemed to have been some of the early adopters actually in terms of digitization and automation of processes, like things like purchase to pay and invoice processing. But they very strongly, their desire to continue evolving the tech landscape in finance to get better and better and use AI for things like better fraud detection upfront came through really strongly. And there was a request for support from IT in doing that. So I don't know if that's your experience, David, but that came through in our conversations.
Yeah, we're using very mature P2P processes, and in terms of AI, something that we're looking at the moment. Our financial forecasting tooling has regression capability, and something that I want to do in the back half of this year is set the model on one corner and set the FP&A team on the other, and then see who's more accurate in 6 months' time.
So Anita, we've talked around these subjects. At the beginning, Nikki talked about optimizing the experience of the worker, about inclusion, about well-being. How can IT work with the business to better improve employee experience specifically?
So trust and well-being is part of the employee experience, but I think it is very much based in processes and procedures, the way that managers treat employees, the way that the business looks at these fundamental issues, then that it is something that the IT department is responsible for or can contribute to. I think it is a shared responsibility between everyone that is in a leadership position. However, with everything that we want to do, with everything that we give employees access to, the experience obviously plays a huge role. And employees today expect that experience to be just like what they get from consumer solutions. So it needs to be mobile, it needs to be fast, it needs to be seamless, it needs to be easy. And that is then, again, where IT comes in and can help HR find the type of solutions that fit these requirements, because not all of them do. Often the solutions that have been in use especially don't. And so there's a lot of migration going on, a lot of renewal, and supporting the HR department with very quick, very agile migration processes or replacement processes is key, I think, to help in this respect.
Listening to that, talking there about quick and agile migrations, talking about solutions, talking about requirements, I mean, that's not always necessarily possible without bringing third-party businesses to an organization to help drive that change. Or perhaps it is better to grow organically and to have that expertise in-house. David, from a finance perspective, what do you see really working here? I suppose it's a blend of the two, but you've got to have people coming to you all the time, right, making business cases for investment in one organization or another.
I don't think you can to try and turn on a third-party software where no one in the team has got experience without the help of a systems integrator or a third party is, I don't think it's possible. That process comes with its own challenge. Do you do time and material, or do you do fixed price? Users wanting an experience at work that equates to their experience at home. When we use Amazon, we don't have training scripts. We don't have a PDF with screenshots and instructions. You just pick it up and use it, and everyone wants the same at work. And for sure, we try and make sure that the look and feel is given as much parity in decision making, along with the core functionality requirements and security, etc., etc. If we've got the most secure system, it ticks every functional corporate box, but it's a pain for normal day-to-day staff to use. The project going to be deemed a success? Maybe not.
Look, I've got one question left, and Nikki, sorry to put you on the spot and to kind of give you the pressure of summarizing everything that we've covered in the last 20 minutes or so, but what advice would you give to IT leaders where helping HR and finance is concerned and helping them drive forward with their business goals?
As you say, there was quite a lot of ground covered, but I think sort of from the insights that we gathered in the conversation we've had here today, a couple of key things. It's just about working together and really really understanding what HR and finance need, getting involved early in the scoping and sourcing of solutions, understanding the issues and the ways in working, and not just helping deliver a solution that meets the defined objectives, but proactively identifying maybe other issues that the department haven't necessarily noticed, and proactively communicating how technology might be able to avoid future issues. And this touches on sort of proactive communication as well. I think there was a massive recognition from the people we spoke to about the support that IT provide on a reactive basis when things go wrong. And I think, David, you mentioned it, how important it is to then, when things go wrong, provide those proactive communications, so that people come in on Monday morning and they know what's gone wrong, they know when it's going to be fixed, and they don't fluster and worry too much. But it's also about, from a strategic perspective, highlighting the benefits of the technology that's been implemented and the advantages that's going to deliver to the business and employees, and providing sort of that strategic guidance about what's going on from the evolving technology landscape, and starting that conversation and providing that insight to continuously improve the tech stack. So they were sort of the two core themes that I think both aligned to the conversations we had, but seem to be what we've covered today as well.
Look, I want to thank all three of you for your time. It's a huge topic and some kind of aligned, but at the same time competing visions of where we're moving as a business, or as a sector rather. So thank you, Anita, Nikki, and David.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I hope you've enjoyed today's episode of Around the WaterCooler. There are plenty more bits of content to dive into on the CIO WaterCooler website and CIO WaterCooler TV, so please do stay and have a look around.